What do we know and what don't we know? What does it tell us about where they are in the investigation?
You would expect that the place where we may be, and I think this is clearly the administration's objective, and that is to get this to the finish line. And the expectation would be that you wouldn't interview the president until the end of the investigation. In other words, you would interview primarily everybody else, principally everybody else, before you got to the point when you interviewed the president. And I think, better practice is, guidance from the Supreme Court has been, you interview the president as a last resort, and you only get one chance to do that. So look, nobody knows for certain. I can't say it for certain, but I think the hope of the administration is that the fastest way to get to the end here is to make the president available so that the objective can be achieved, and that is that Bob Mueller can conclude his investigation and that it is accomplished before it impacts the election cycle in 2018.
So as you say, in these investigations, you go from the bottom up, basically, in your integration. But you just raised a critical point. You're probably only going to get one shot at the president because there's been some speculation that maybe there are two parts to the investigation, one obstruction of justice and the other perhaps some financial.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I mean, Bob Mueller was appointed to investigate the issues with regard to the election, Russia collusion, obviously along the way, to the extent that there's any evidence of obstruction of justice or false statements. All of that is, a single investigation. I don't buy the notion, as some have suggested, that this is just the quote-unquote obstruction piece, and then we'll go on and we'll do our little collusion piece, and we'll get back to the president later on. Again, I guess there's a first for everything, but that would be extraordinarily unlikely. It doesn't, mean that you're talking about just Donald Trump specifically. You're talking about the institution and the office of the president, and respect of the branches of government and the institution of the office of the president would seem to counsel in favor of, you get one shot at the president. That's it.
Yeah, that was the impression that I got as well, that you had two parts to this investigation. But let's talk about this meeting that's expected to take place. President Trump has said that he's looking forward to it. What's the biggest risk for the president in this meeting?
I don't think you can parse it into, particular things. Look, it's a law enforcement procedure. It is before the Office of Special Counsel. The president has asked that it be under oath, presumably. It could have been an interview, but either way, whether it's an interview by FBI agents and prosecutors with Bob Mueller's office, or if it's a deposition under oath, it's either under penalty of prosecution for false statements or penalty of prosecution for perjury. So it will be a solemn occasion. We understand that it's likely to happen before the end of this month, meaning maybe as soon as next week, maybe later, but apparently soon. And it means that every question that's asked, you're obligated to tell the truth, and you do so understanding that you're either under oath or that you're speaking to law enforcement, and if you make a false statement, you could be prosecuted for false statements.
Conservatives.
All felonies.
Right. A perjury, felony, yeah.
Sure, and a prosecution for false statements.
18 U.S.C. 1001 is
1001, right, correct.
Yeah, lying to a federal government official.
Lying to a federal government official, which would include FBI agents, Bob Mueller himself, and Bob Mueller's prosecutors.